The Starry Night is one of the most famous works of art in the Western world. Vincent van Gogh's masterpiece has inspired countless of imitations by other artists using a variety of media. And in the southeastern European nation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's inspired something on a canvas of nature. About 6 years ago, the owner of a park there noticed that the swirling tracks made by a tractor kind of resembled the swirls from Van Gogh's painting. So he expanded his land, hired dozens of gardeners, and got to work shaping his own variation of Starry Night. He put in thousands of trees and plants and 130,000 lavender bushes. The owner didn't tell the AFP news agency what it cost to make his own natural artwork, but he did say it took more than money, that you also need time to shape a park. As far as shapes go, he adds there isn't a straight line in the park, just like in nature. We have another plant-related story in full bloom a little later on the World from A to Z. Welcome to the show. I'm Carl Azuz, always happy to see you. On the Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale, a commonly used measurement of storm intensity, Category 5 is the highest it goes. It means a storm's sustained winds are at least 157 miles per hour and able to rip off roofs, cause walls to collapse, and leave an area uninhabitable for a long time after the storm passes. Yesterday, Hurricane Milton achieved that status as it continued to whirl across the Gulf of Mexico. There is a silver lining to this, though. While the state of Florida is directly in its path, and while mandatory evacuations have been put in place to get people away from the coast, hurricanes can weaken before they make landfall, and that's what Milton's expected to do. Meteorologists think it'll drop down to Category 3 status before it barrels into the U.S. on Wednesday. That's still considered a major hurricane, and it's still expected to impact some of the areas that have a long recovery ahead from Hurricane Helene, which hit Florida's Big Bend region on September 26th. But there's hope that the wind and the storm surge, the rise in seawater levels blown ashore by an approaching hurricane, won't be as devastating as they could be with an even more powerful system.
Word of knowledge. Silicon dioxide is the chemical compound of what mineral? Quartz, nickel, zinc, mica. This simple formula makes up one of the most abundant minerals on Earth. The answer is quartz.
A small town in North Carolina that was flooded by Hurricane Helene is home to the quartz used to make many semiconductor chips, the kind used in smartphones and medical devices. This could impact the global supply chain of these chips.
On the outskirts of Spruce Pine, North Carolina, a town of less than 2,200 people, are two mines that produce the world's purest quartz.
These mines in this little town are responsible for 80 to 90% of the crucibles that are used by the semiconductor manufacturing industry to make silicon chips.
Because of the destruction and damage from Hurricane Helene, it could take weeks for the mines to be operational again, let alone rebuilding communities devastated by the storm so specialized employees can return to work. David Bader says this could lead to disruptions in the supply chain.
And that means delays in consumer products that use these chips, and also driving the cost to consumers higher.
During the last global chip shortage in 2021, caused by the pandemic, car manufacturers were building nearly complete cars, but without the chips to power critical features, they couldn't be shipped. Although some chip manufacturers may have several weeks' supply of high-purity quartz in order to continue production, a longer shutdown paints a grim picture.
Any disruption may have profound impacts for potentially months to come.
We reached out to both companies that operate the mines, and they say most importantly, they're ensuring that their employees and their families are safe. There is no timeline for when operations will resume.
On this date in world history, a Nobel Prize for Literature was awarded on October 8, 1970 to a Russian novelist named Alexander Solzhenitsyn, but it wasn't just because he wrote a good book. Solzhenitsyn, who'd been imprisoned for criticizing Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin, later wrote works that showed what it was like to suffer in Soviet gulags, the communist country's forced labor camps. And while they were unflattering to Stalin's regime, Solzhenitsyn's stories were widely circulated in Russia and abroad. And on this date in 1871, a trio of destructive fires broke out in the American Midwest. The most well-known is the Great Chicago Fire, which killed about 300 people and destroyed a third of the city. The wind that fanned the flames might have been part of the same weather system that helped spread the Great Michigan Fire, which started the same day and consumed thousands of acres in that state, and the Peshtigo Fire, the deadliest wildfire in American history that killed more than 1,200 people, possibly twice that many, as it ravaged northeastern Wisconsin.
Where in the world? This is a nation that's mostly covered by desert. It has the second largest economy in Africa behind South Africa. It's ancient, rich in culture, and has Cairo as its capital. The nation of Egypt has existed for millennia and might have been the birthplace of houseplants.
Pothos, Monstera, Burl Marx. If you're a plant parent, these names are familiar. But who first took plants indoors and when is up for debate. Some say it was around 2000 BC in ancient Egypt. Others say China 1,000 years later. Archaeological findings, paintings, and sculptures suggest that around that time, trees and plants were taken inside for decor, but also to practice survival skills. Having a green thumb meant you could grow your own food and make your own medicines. Some plants were very practical. In Egypt, papyrus was used to make paper for documents and religious texts, and the fruit of olive trees became an oil vital to life in the Middle East. Maybe that's why King Nebuchadnezzar had them among the plants and trees decorating his hanging gardens of Babylon. Some indoor plants were exclusive to wealthy people, particularly the rare and hard-to-care-for types. But by the Victorian era, nature was finding its way into middle-class homes as plants became more accessible and affordable. Ivies, ferns, rubber plants, and cast iron plants were popular because they could survive in cold, dark European homes. In fact, plants were so adorned, Victorians set aside specific places for them, like parlors, conservatories, and greenhouses. Further advances in home heating and cooling have made it even more possible to grow plants indoors, and not homes, but also offices. During World War II, many women joined the workforce and added plants to their desks and windowsills, which has carried over into our day. And why not? Because some studies suggest that indoor plants improve air and even reduce stress.
Starting in the U.S. Northeast and working our way south today, first, we've got Mr. Donahue's class watching from Sauderton Area High School. It's great to see y'all in the Keystone State of Pennsylvania and the borough of Sauderton. From there, we're stopping by the Old Line State. That's Maryland. That's where we're happy to see Mrs. Stoneham's class in the community of Pasadena. Northeast Middle School is here. And Miami, Florida is where we wrap things up. Big hello to Mr. Moreno's class at Miami Arts Charter School in the Sunshine State. The last time we covered something like this, people called me Carl a Moose for like ever. But it involved not a goose or a bird that had left its roost, but a real-life moose that had parked its caboose under a not really chartreuse pool cover in New Hampshire. Authorities uncovered the recluse, giving it a bit of a boost as it was set loose to vamoose, free as a moose, and go anywhere it would choose. Moosling in those rhymes took up most of my time, and the puns are kind of a must-have. So even though they're not exactly musical or mysterious, most people don't mind us making the most of them, so we hope you found them just a little bit amusing. This is the world from A to Z, and you mean the world to me. I'm Carl,